Good morning. Welcome back. I'm Pastor Gabe. If you've been following me with the Great Bible Truth series, you know we have come to an end of that book. We've read 152 Bible passages, actually more than 152 Bible passages, 152 topics with probably 400 passages. So you can look back at those anytime. This channel will be left up, and you might see this video, in fact, later down the road, and I hope you can be encouraged by it, whether you're watching it today or at any point. So, as you can see by the title, our title is The Cost of Discipleship. Let me read for you from Matthew chapter 1, verses 16 and 17. Now, as he walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And Jesus said unto them, Come you after me, and I will make you become fishers of men. So we see a call here by Jesus to these men to leave what they know, leave their job, their livelihood, their identity, which was fishermen, and that Jesus would give them a new livelihood and identity, which is to be fishers of men, that they would go and win the world, so to speak, with the gospel. They would go and spread the gospel to Jew, Greek, Gentile, all over the world. Now, I wanted to read a quick section by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. This is a book with the title of the same name as our devotional this morning. So Jesus calls these men to discipleship. And if you don't know who Bonhoeffer is, he was a Lutheran pastor. He was a martyr. The Nazis, he opposed the Nazis and was put to death for that. And oftentimes people don't know that Hitler also killed millions of Christians, especially Polish Christians. So it wasn't just Jews that were killed in the Holocaust. There were many Christians as well who opposed his rule and unfortunately lost their life. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer is one of the most famous for this, and his writings were prolific against the Nazis, and even in the internment camps, what he wrote, or concentration camps, I should say. But let me read this chapter 1 of Bonhoeffer. He says this, kind of with this thought of the call of discipleship in mind. We won't read it all, but you'll get the grasp, the gist of it. Cheap grace is the deadly enemy of our church. We are fighting today for costly grace. Cheap grace means grace sold on the market like cheap jack wares, which would be like a 99-cent store item. The sacraments, the forgiveness of sin, and the consolations of religion are thrown away at cut prices. Grace is represented as the church's inexhaustible treasury, from which she showers blessings with generous hands, without asking questions or fixing limits. Grace without price. Grace without cost. The essence of grace, we suppose, is the account has been paid in advance, and because it has been paid, everything can be had for nothing. Since the cost was infinite, the possibilities of using and spending it are infinite. What would grace be if it were not cheap? So to understand Bonhoeffer here and what he's trying to get at, we have to understand more of the historical understanding of grace and of the word and sacrament as it's understood by Protestants, that the word of God is preached, which stirs our heart, and the sacraments are visible signs and seals of God's grace. And so a person to be right with God hears the preaching of the gospel, goes to church, takes the sacraments, and this is the normal mode God used to bring about the conversion of the sinner. This is how discipleship takes place. We hear the word, we hear the call, we attend church, we gather together, we are baptized, we take the Lord's Supper, and all is well, or all should be well, right? If we truly hear the word as it's intended to be preached and see the sacraments as they're intended to be administered. But what Bonhoeffer is noticing in his day is people are looking at this as if it's just a grace table, that you just come up to communion and you're taking a piece of grace and you're eating, and it's unlimited, and the church just has this unlimited ability to give you grace and to give you forgiveness and to make you holy, but not a true holiness, but a holiness that's just theoretical. And so he's saying there's no cost. there's no price, right? When Jesus calls these fishermen to follow him, he's saying, leave this behind and follow me. So Bonhoeffer really is calling out the Christians of his day, and this is prior to the Nazis he's writing this, of saying, we're kind of missing it, guys, right? That when we come to church, we're being called to something. We're being called to the Word. We're being called to the sacraments, not to just live however we're going to live and then just go there and get free grace or cheap grace, which means no change. So let's ponder that, right? How is God calling us? What do we need to change? Not by our power, but to just give it to God and say, Lord, you change me. You make me holy. Tomorrow we'll go a little bit more into some of these concepts, but for today, I think that's enough for us to think and ponder and to really, as we have 2 days, Thursday, 3 days before we go to church again, if you're watching this the day of. So how can we prepare ourselves to really not just go to church and see it as a grace dispensary, if you will, but to go there and say, I want to receive grace, but how can I live that grace out? How can I allow it to change me? Because if we're truly receiving grace, then we need to live it. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Let us think on these things.